Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good whatever. This is Dramatis Personae, the only Star Trek read aloud group in the Alpha Quadrant. We are here today with Blood Fever from Voyager. We're very excited to bring this to you. Let me just make sure that my mic is actually on right now. It is, thank God. All right. We are in the midst of Horny Trek Month here at Dramatis Personae, where we're presenting episodes that deal with sex, horny crew members, particularly Ponfar, And this is to celebrate Pride, which in the midst of everything happening in the world right now is more important than ever. It's been the past few days have been really rough, especially for trans folks, as protections in the United States are being taken away in the healthcare system. There's been some news in Great Britain as well for some really painful legislation. And we just want to say affirmatively and aggressively that trans people do exist. Trans people are valued. Trans people deserve to have all the same protections and benefits as everyone else. And if you don't agree, you can absolutely go fuck yourself. So with that, I would love to introduce our cast. So I'm going to say our cast members' names, and they are going to say hello and say who they're playing. So I'm going to put this in speaker view. And let's start with Casey Lowry.
Hello, I am playing B'Elanna Torres.
We've got Steffi.
Hello, I'm playing Lieutenant Tom Paris.
Wonderful. We got Randall C. Brown.
Hi, I am playing CHAKOTAY.
We got Paul Bloomer.
Hello there, I am playing TUVOK.
We got Becks Renfro.
Hey, I'm playing Captain KATHRYN Janeway.
We got Robbie Laughton.
Hi, I'm playing Vulcan incel Vorik, live horny and prosper.
Beautiful. We got Morgan Murphy.
Hi, I'm Morgan. I'm playing Kess.
Yes. We got David X. Crowe, or Crowe.
Please state the nature of the sexual emergency.
Ooh.
I'm playing the EMH.
All right, we got Maksim Rex.
Hi, I'm playing NEELIX.
We got JP Ray.
Hi, I'm playing ENS LANG.
We got Leah Newton.
Hi, I will be playing ISHAN.
We got Charlene Templeman.
I will be playing Shiny Alien.
And last but certainly not least, we got JB Flatt.
No, we don't.
JB.
Yes, we do.
Where have you gone?
I will be very competently, hopefully, unmuting my microphone and narrating tonight's adventure.
Wonderful. All right. Well, with that, let me get my script in the right place, and we will go ahead and get started, y'all.
It is the 24th century, and the USS Voyager, under the command of Captain KATHRYN Janeway, orbits a green gaseous planet.
Captain's log, stardate 50537.2. Routine scans of an uninhabited star system have revealed the presence of gallicite, a very rare substance on the fourth planet.
On the bridge, Captain Janeway, CHAKOTAY, TUVOK, B'Elanna Torres, and Tom Paris discuss the scans.
If these readings are right, we're looking at a yield of nearly a kiloton. That would be enough gallicite to completely refit the warp coils.
They sure could use it with all the damage they've taken the past 2 years.
Is there anyone in the area who might consider this their property?
There are indications that the colony once existed on the planet's surface. However, it appears to be long abandoned.
All right, let's stake a claim. I'll leave this in your hands. B'Elanna, use whatever resources or personnel you need. You might want to talk to Mr. NEELIX. I believe he spent some time working in a mining colony.
Aye, Captain.
Later, in engineering, Torres and Vorik stand over a table, reviewing digital maps of the planet.
These tunnels are clearly artificial. Someone else must have been interested in digging up this gallicite.
That should make it easier to access the deposits.
True, but we have to be careful. There's been a lot of seismic activity down there. Look, these tunnels are completely collapsed. We should bring Tom Paris on the away team. He's had quite a lot of rock climbing experience.
I have spent several summers exploring the Osana Caverns, which involved some quite treacherous climbing.
Great. You two will be our safety experts.
Have we completed our preparations to your satisfaction?
We're done here, yes.
Let me take this opportunity to declare kun ot solik, my desire to become your mate.
What?
In human terms, I am proposing marriage. Do you accept?
This is a little sudden, isn't it? Besides, I thought Vulcan marriages were arranged. Don't you already have somebody back home?
She has sufficient reason to consider me lost and has most likely chosen another mate. It's appropriate for me to do the same.
And you've chosen me?
I have come to greatly admire not only your impressive technical skills, but also your bravery and sense of moral duty, all excellent qualities in a prospective mate.
But you're Vulcan, and I'm half Klingon. I really can't imagine...
Perhaps we are not an obvious match. However, our differences would complement each other. You've often expressed frustration with your Klingon temper. My mental discipline would help you control it. Furthermore, I feel that...
Wait, please. I see you've given this a lot of logical thought, and I really am very flattered, but my answer is no. I'm sorry.
B'Elanna, you may wish to reconsider. Your choices for a mate are currently limited to 140 crew members on the ship, some of whom are already unavailable.
I'll worry about my choices myself, thank you.
I should also remind you that many humanoid species are unable to withstand Klingon mating practices.
Okay, that's enough.
Whereas my superior Vulcan strength would make me a very suitable partner.
Vorik grabs Torres's face with both hands. After a struggle, she breaks his hold and knocks him down. End of teaser. Act 1. In sickbay, the emergency medical hologram scans Vorik with a medical tricorder as Torres watches. Kess enters with a pad.
Here are the results of his cortical scan.
So what's wrong with him?
In addition to a dislocated jaw, Ensign Vorik appears to be suffering from a neurochemical imbalance.
Meaning what?
Meaning, I believe I should discuss that with the patient privately.
Torres leaves.
You're going through the pond far, aren't you?
That's an extremely personal question, Doctor.
Yes, I'm aware that Vulcans prefer to keep their mating practices very much to themselves. There's almost nothing in the medical database beyond a few observations made by Starfleet doctors over the years. Your symptoms, the chemical imbalance, and the loss of emotional control are consistent with those observations. Have you been eating and sleeping normally?
I knew there was something wrong. I was hoping it wasn't this.
I assume this is your first PONFAR? There's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's a normal biological function. I'll do what I can to help you through it, but I'll need a little more information.
We do not discuss it.
I'm afraid you'll have to. You have a severe imbalance in your brain chemistry. If it gets much worse, it could become life-threatening. Now, I need to know how Vulcans deal with this condition.
We go home. Every 7 years of our adult life, Vulcans experience an instinctual, irresistible urge to return to the homeworld and take a mate.
But in your case, being stranded halfway across the galaxy, that's impossible.
Yes.
So then, logically, you try to find a mate here. I assume that explains your behavior towards Lieutenant Torres.
I have always had great respect for B'Elanna. I hope she isn't too upset with me.
With Lieutenant Torres, upset is a relative term. In any case, we're going to have to try to find another way to treat your condition. Let's start with a microcellular scan.
No! I don't want medical treatment. I will resolve this myself.
And how do you intend to do that?
There are certain meditative techniques. I will be fine if simply left alone. Please allow me to return to my quarters. Confine me there if you wish, but allow me to resolve my situation privately.
Until I have a better idea of how to treat your condition, I'll release you to your quarters. You will be under confinement, and you'll be wearing a cortical monitor at all times.
Thank you.
Later, TUVOK and the EMH discuss Vorik's condition in the doctor's office.
I am concerned about Ensign Vorik's cortical readings. One returns to normal levels, then another spikes. It's chaotic. It's as if the brain's regulatory systems have just shut down. I can't tell if he's making any progress with these meditations. I thought maybe you could suggest other possible treatments.
I cannot.
Is that because you don't know, or because you don't want to discuss it?
For both of those reasons. There is little help I can offer. It is inappropriate for me to involve myself in Ensign Vorik's personal situation.
For such an intellectually enlightened race, Vulcans have a remarkably Victorian attitude about sex.
That is a very human judgment, Doctor.
Then here's a Vulcan one. I fail to see the logic in perpetuating ignorance about a basic biological function.
There is nothing logical about the Pon farr. It is a time when instinct and emotion dominate over reason. It cannot be analyzed by the rational mind, nor cured by conventional medicine. Anyone who's experienced it understands it simply must be followed to its natural resolution.
Which is what, exactly?
There are three options that I am aware of. Taking a mate, which Ensign Vorik has already attempted. The ritual combat, which does not apply to this situation.
Combat?
An ancient tradition of fighting for one's mate, which, as I have said, is not relevant here. The third alternative is the intensive meditation which he has chosen to try.
Isn't there anything we can do to help him with that?
I believe that any interference would be unwelcome and counterproductive. You must allow him to face this challenge privately. Reach a point of psychological resolution, then this chemical imbalance should correct itself.
The Vulcan brain never ceases to amaze me. Thank you, Lieutenant. You've been a great help.
Meanwhile, in the transporter room, NEELIX and Paris are dressed in excursion fatigues as Torres enters with aggressive enthusiasm.
Ah, you two are awfully prompt.
Impressed?
Oh, it'll take a little more work than that to impress me, Lieutenant.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, let me show you our target area.
Shouldn't we wait for Ensign Vorik?
He's not coming. This seems to be the most accessible vein of Galisite. We'll beam to the surface, then go down through this passageway until it dead ends in this chamber. Then we'll descend almost 50 meters, almost straight down. Do you see any problem with that, Tom?
Well, as long as we go slow and easy, we'll be fine.
Good. You're all set, NEELIX?
I've got a laser drill, sample cases, geospectral analysis kit.
In other words, you're ready. Let's go.
The three beam down to the planet's surface, near distressed stone blocks and a stone path with steps amid jungle overgrowth.
This way.
Look over here. This must have been the colony.
Not more than 50 or 60 years ago. Hardly enough time for three structures to decay so badly.
They must have suffered some kind of a disaster, maybe an earthquake?
Well, we'll send down an archaeological team later on. Right now, we've got our own work to do.
Are we in a rush?
I just don't see any point in wasting time. Unless, of course, you want to stall to put off demonstrating your climbing expertise.
Grab your gear and try to keep up.
Later on, the three climb down a rope into an underground cavern.
No matter how real a holodeck program may seem, it just doesn't get your heart pumping like a genuine physical challenge. It's exhilarating.
If you're looking for exhilaration.
Torres indicates a deep chasm which stands before them.
It didn't look quite so steep on the sensor map, did it?
We're prepared for this. We can handle it. Let's go.
All this Starfleet technology almost takes the fun out of it.
If you mean the fun of wondering whether your ankle will hold while you're dangling over a cliff, I think I'll pass. See you below.
Paris rappels down.
NEELIX, you go first. I'll follow.
What's your footing?
You're right. My heart is pumping faster.
Wait till we climb back up with a pack full of gallicite.
Oh, I'm just getting warmed up.
NEELIX's piton comes free at the top and he tumbles to the base of the cliff.
No!
Paris descends rapidly, followed by Torres. She lands heavily on her feet, whereas NEELIX had fallen on his backpack. Torres coughs heavily.
Are you hurt?
You almost got us both killed!
I'm sorry, I don't know what happened.
Careful, careful. You might have broken it.
You had no business rigging safety equipment when you had no idea what you were doing!
Calm down. This wasn't NEELIX's fault. I saw him drive the piton and it was solid. It must have malfunctioned. You're hurt.
I'm fine, no thanks to you two. I would have been better coming down here alone.
Don't you think you're overreacting a bit?
Just drag him to the ship. I'll get the gallicite myself.
We can't leave you down here alone.
He's right. Let's contact the ship.
You get your hands off me.
Ow!
Torres bites Paris's cheek.
B'Elanna, what is wrong with you?
Nothing. I'm in charge of this mission. I'll finish it.
Wait.
Go ahead, Tom. I'll be all right here.
The last thing we need is for all three of us to be split up. Paris to Voyager. We got a problem down here.
End of Act 1. Act 2. A short time later, Paris is on his communicator with Captain Janeway.
I haven't been able to contact her. She's either out of communications range or just not responding.
Where is she now?
Last location I can verify is about 10 meters below us. I tried to stop her from leaving, Captain, but she's got very hostile and bit me.
She bit you?
And she seems to be enjoying it in a Klingon kind of way. She's really not herself.
Janeway looks at TUVOK, who seems a bit embarrassed.
Any luck in getting a transporter lock on them?
No, Captain. They're too far beneath the surface.
Tom, I'm sending an away team down to you. We'll get NEELIX out of there, then go after B'Elanna. TUVOK, you're with CHAKOTAY.
Captain, I'd like to request a short delay. I may have an explanation for Lieutenant Torres' behavior.
Sometime later, Vorik meditates intensely in his dark Vulcan incel lair.
Go away!
The doors open and TUVOK enters Vorik's quarters.
I said go away! I'm sorry, sir.
No, I must apologize for the intrusion, particularly at this time.
Then you know.
Yes. Comfortable questions regarding Lieutenant Torres.
Yes, sir.
It is important for me to know specifically what happened between the two of you. Was there any physical contact?
Yes.
Please describe your actions.
It's hard to remember. I was acting irrationally. I believe I approached her. I touched her face. I meant to be gentle, but she tried to move away, and then I was holding her more tightly, both hands on her face, like this. It felt very important not to let go. I'm not certain why.
I believe you were initiating a telepathic mating bond.
I didn't know it could happen that way. I wanted to bond with her, that much I remember clearly.
Apparently, you succeeded. Lieutenant Torres has been displaying unusual behavior, very much like the early...
How is that possible? She's not Vulcan.
There have been instances of Vulcans mating with members of other races.
But she rejected me, forcefully.
Even a brief moment of bonding may have been enough to disrupt her self-control, as the Pon farr does in us. In a half Klingon, the effects may be even more extreme.
I have to go to her.
You cannot. Lieutenant Torres is out of contact on the planet.
I'll find her. B'Elanna needs me, and I need her.
It is a far more sensible strategy to get her safely back to Voyager, and then decide on the proper resolution.
The resolution must be that we become mates. It is only logical.
Lieutenant Torres has never been a great follower of logic.
You think she'll reject me again?
It might be wise to continue your meditative efforts.
Do my best, sir.
Later, under the planet's surface, CHAKOTAY puts the injured NEELIX in a harness as TUVOK talks to Paris.
It is difficult to estimate how soon her condition will become life-threatening.
Life-threatening? She could die from this?
Yes.
And you've just gone through it every 7 years of your adult life?
You only need to be concerned with Lieutenant Torres' situation.
Right, well, it looks like finding her won't be easy. Scanning range is limited to about 20 meters, and even that's not too reliable.
You said she was going after the Galacite, so we'll do the same and hope it leads us to her.
I'm ready to go, Commander.
NEELIX rises up the cliff via the harness and rope.
Let's go.
Later, in a nearby cave, water drips and moss grows. B'Elanna Torres is there scanning the rocks. She moves a few steps to discover a power cable and a flashing light. Torres hears the sounds of footsteps. Startled, she grabs a rock and prepares to hurl it.
B'Elanna.
Torres drops the rock and approaches Paris, who enters, followed by CHAKOTAY and TUVOK.
Tom, come here. You've got to see this.
How are you feeling, Lieutenant?
Fine. This must be the active power system. It must have been built by the colonists.
We'll send somebody down here to study it more closely, but right now we've got to get you back to the ship.
No. This is my discovery. It's my mission. You don't understand. This is the source of the Galacite readings. These conduits are covered with Galacite plating. It's exactly what we need, and I found it.
Yes, Lieutenant. You've succeeded in your mission. Now you must tend to yourself. You are experiencing a condition known as Pon farr.
Pon what?
Your emotional balance has been disrupted. You may not be the instincts.
I lost my temper for a minute, that's all. Why are you all looking at me like that?
Please, come back with us to the ship.
Just leave me alone.
A figure appears from the rock face. Then more. They are armed. End of Act 2. Act 3. The landing party stands face to face with a group of armed aliens. Their leader, ISHAN, speaks.
Who are you? What do you want?
My name is CHAKOTAY. I assure you we have no hostile intent.
She does.
B'Elanna, please.
She is suffering from a chemical imbalance, which is affecting her behavior.
An imbalance. Is it contagious?
No. However, she does require our assistance.
We'd be glad to take her and leave your territory.
Not before you tell me why you came here.
We only came to find some Galacite. We thought this planet was uninhabited.
Then why are you carrying weapons?
It's standard procedure for any mission into unfamiliar territory.
Let me see one.
CHAKOTAY hands over his phaser. Torres begins to approach to stop him, but TUVOK holds her back.
And what is that? Some sort of scanning device?
Called a tricorder.
but it didn't detect any life forms here.
No, it didn't.
ISHAN returns the favor. An alien device beeps.
What's that?
Seismic alert. That wall is unstable. Be careful.
Another alien notices the wall collapsing and calls out to Torres. The alien tries to pull Torres to safety, but she attacks him. TUVOK takes aim at the alien, but finds his phaser does not work. Another alien places a rifle at TUVOK's neck. Paris grabs Torres's shoulders.
B'Elanna, don't, B'Elanna.
The ground shakes and rocks tumble down. Paris falls. Torres grabs the alien's rifle and melees him. He falls to the ground and loses consciousness. Torres and Paris size up the area, but when they look back at the unconscious alien on the ground, the other aliens, and the rest of the landing party are nowhere to be seen. Paris and Torres are alone.
There must be a hidden door, some kind of passageway.
I'm not picking up anything like that, or any life signs.
Torres rips the tricorder out of his hand.
Then you're using it wrong.
Paris snatches it back.
Yeah, that must be it. Or else these aliens are generating some kind of interference so we can't detect them. We have to get out of here before they come back.
Torres, panting, sits on the ground.
We can't just leave CHAKOTAY and TUVOK.
If you have any ideas how to find them, I'm listening.
Paris notices that Torres is exhausted. He crouches down next to her.
We have to get back to the ship and get you some help. For them and for you.
Why does everybody keep saying there's something wrong with me?
I'll try to explain to you, but we've got to get moving.
Meanwhile, in the Voyager sickbay, the EMH is examining Vorik.
There. Yes, your serotonin levels are stabilized for the moment, but I'm concerned about these fluctuations. It's becoming more difficult to compensate.
I will increase my efforts to control them, Doctor.
I'd like you to consider an alternative I've been developing.
No, I will deal with this myself.
Ensign, your life is at risk.
You don't understand. How well a Vulcan copes with this experience is a test of their character. I've already humiliated myself and Lieutenant TUVOK by allowing a private matter to become so public.
Give yourself a little credit. You're doing the best you can under unusually difficult circumstances. If you were back on Vulcan, you'd have your family and friends there to help you.
I shouldn't need any help.
I know that self-sufficiency is a very important part of being a Vulcan, but there is nothing shameful with getting a little guidance every once in a while. I'd like you to consider my alternative, and then you can decide whether or not to try it.
A little while later, Ensign Vorik enters the holodeck to meet the EMH in a luxurious tropical resort at night.
Ensign.
I don't understand the purpose of coming here.
Trust me. Ensign Vorik, I'd like you to meet Tapera.
A Vulcan woman in traditional clothing gazes at Vorik.
Surely you're not suggesting that she become my mate.
Well, I wouldn't recommend a lifetime commitment, but she might be able to help you with your immediate problem.
She's a hologram. She isn't real.
Then I assume you have the same low regard for me.
You're a skilled physician, Doctor, but let me point out the limitations to your own experience with physical matters.
I believe we're discussing your sexual difficulties at the moment, Ensign, and this holographic mate is the best solution I can think of.
She won't be the same as a real mate.
The difference is all in your mind, which, if I've understood you and Mr. TUVOK correctly, is where the Ponfar must ultimately be resolved. Let your mind convince your body that she is exactly what you need her to be. think of this as an advanced self-healing technique. It will still need you to exercise considerable mental discipline.
There is a certain logic to your suggestion, Doctor. I will try.
Good. Well, then I'll leave the two of you alone.
Beneath the planet's surface, Torres and Paris find their way through the labyrinthine cave system. Torres breathes heavily, drenched in sweat. Paris doesn't and isn't.
TUVOK must be wrong about this Ponfar business. It doesn't make any sense.
It does explain how you've been acting.
I don't see what's so strange.
How about starting a fight with a group of armed aliens, shouting at NEELIX, giving me this? If I remember my Klingon customs, biting someone in the face means...
I know what it means.
Torres collapses against the cave wall, phaser rifle in hand.
All right, so maybe I do feel something, some kind of instinct. What am I supposed to do about it?
When we get back to the ship, the doctor should be able to help. Oh, there's always Vorik.
I am not helping that Vulcan Ptah. The idea of bonding with him, it's ludicrous.
They come to a barrier of rocks.
What's this?
The tremor must have shaken the rocks loose.
Well, they're in the way.
She begins to hoist the phaser rifle. Paris grabs it.
Hold it. We don't know how stable this tunnel is. An energy blast might bring the rest of it down on our heads.
Let go!
No, I think I should keep this.
They struggle for the phaser rifle, sexily.
Never pick a fight with a Klingon, Tom.
I'm not gonna fight with you, B'Elanna.
Afraid I'll break your arm? You should be.
B'Elanna, stop it. This isn't about the gun. This is about sex. But that's not gonna happen right now.
I think it is. See, I've picked up your scent, Tom. I've tasted your blood.
She breathes deeply and heavily.
No, I'm your friend, and we'll have to watch out for you. Your judgment's been impaired. If you let these instincts take over now, you'll hate yourself and me, for taking advantage of you. I won't do that.
Torres relents and collapses against the cave wall.
Maybe we should just continue separately.
No.
You don't know how strong, how hard it is to fight this urge.
Are you telling me that I'm impossible to resist?
I wouldn't go that far.
Good. Come on.
End of Act 3. Act 4. In a room beneath the planet's surface, ISHAN scans TUVOK and CHAKOTAY with a tricorder-like device. Another Sakari stands guard.
I want to know about the vessel which brought you here. Your propulsion systems, weapons, sensors, everything. You have an artificial implant in your arm.
Yes, it was necessary to replace the elbow joint after I was injured in a combat simulation.
I also want to know about your medical technology, scientific advances, artificial intelligence.
I'd be glad to tell you all about my people and learn about yours. There's no need to hold us here for interrogation.
You should expect no better treatment after invading Sakari territory.
As I said, we didn't know there was anyone down here.
Yes, so you've said.
Your people have clearly made every effort to avoid detection by outsiders. Is it so difficult to believe that those measures were effective in our case?
If they had been fully effective, you wouldn't have found anything interesting enough to bring you here.
That's something we can help you with.
What?
We can show you how we detected the Galaxy, so you can disguise it better. We can also help you eliminate the last traces of the ruins on the surface, so no one else will be curious about them.
You've seen the ruins?
Yes. I assume the Sakari once lived there.
Long ago, before I was born.
What happened?
My people never even knew who the invaders were or why they attacked. It was all over in less than an hour. Some of the colonists were fortunate enough to escape into the mines. We've lived here ever since, where it is safe. If the invaders ever learned of our existence here, they might return.
I can certainly understand your caution. But let us demonstrate our good faith by helping you protect yourselves. Then we'll go and never bother you again.
Agreed. But you will be supervised at all times.
The seismic alert starts beeping again. Another tremor rumbles as Paris and Torres make their way through the tunnels.
We're almost to the next passageway. Can you make it?
Not much choice.
More rocks fall, blocking their way. They cough from the dust.
It's all right. We'll find a way out.
We should use that weapon. It's worth the risk now.
I might agree with you if I still had it. It's buried somewhere under all that.
What?
Sorry, try to stay calm. I know it's hard.
You don't know anything. I feel like I'm crawling out of my skin. I need to do something. I just can't take this.
She pushes Paris to the ground and straddles him. He rolls on top of her, then stands up.
You've never been hard to get, Tom.
Well, I'm making an exception. I can't let you do this.
Oh, I bet you wish you could. All those invitations to dinner, and on the holodeck, the way you would stare at me when you thought I wasn't looking, and get jealous when I'm with someone else. You can't tell me you're not interested in me.
She pins him against the cave wall, breathing down his neck, hornily.
You're right. I can't.
Then don't push me away.
Believe me, I'd like to. But I know this isn't really you. You've made it clear that you're not interested. I have to accept that's how you feel, even now.
No, it isn't. I was just afraid to admit it. You see, I've wanted this for so long.
She kisses him.
Just let it happen.
Paris initially tries to dodge her lips, then gives in.
I hope someday you'll say that to me and mean it.
Torres throws him off.
You'd let me go insane rather than help me?
You know that's not true.
Just stay away from me.
Back on Voyager, the EMH returns to the holodeck.
You called, Ensign? Is there a problem?
Not at all.
You seem much improved.
Yes, your holodeck therapy was very effective. I must compliment you on an innovative solution.
I'm pleased to hear that. This could be a viable alternative for spacefaring Vulcans. When we get back, I am sure Starfleet Medical will...
Vorik gives him a look.
Never, ever hear about your personal experiences from me.
Thank you, Doctor. May I return to duty?
Soon enough, Ensign. I'll need to run a few more cortical scans.
After examining Vorik, the EMH reports to Janeway in his office.
Mr. Vorik's biochemical readings are stabilizing, Captain. They've not got back to normal yet, but I believe he's gotten through the worst of it. I'm ready to release him from sickbay.
Good work, Doctor. Will this treatment help B'Elanna as well?
I don't see why not.
As soon as the away team gets back, I'll send her straight to you.
I'll get to work designing the half-Klingon version of the program. There's copious amounts of information in the cultural database about their mating practices. Did you know that fracturing a clavicle on the wedding night is actually considered a blessing on the marriage?
As a matter of fact, I didn't.
I'm planning to do a comparative study of all of these mating rituals. It really is fascinating from a socio-biological point of view.
I'm sure B'Elanna will appreciate your efforts, Doctor.
Under the planet's surface, Paris pulls at rocks to try to find a way through. Torres lies on the ground, moaning.
Where are we?
Still stuck in the cave, I'm afraid.
The caves of the Galasite. Where's my tricorder?
No, we're not looking for the Galasite anymore. We're trying to get back to the ship, remember?
No, I don't.
CHAKOTAY breaks through the rockfall from the other side.
Are you two all right?
B'Elanna needs help. We've got to get her out of here.
Later, on the planet surface, CHAKOTAY tries to contact Voyager.
CHAKOTAY to Voyager. Please respond. Still nothing.
What's the matter? Why aren't they answering?
There must be some kind of communications problem. I'm sure they'll probably clear it up soon.
It may not be soon enough. I am concerned about the rapid progression of her symptoms. You must fuck her now, Mr. Paris. If she does not resolve the Pon farr, she will die.
CHAKOTAY and TUVOK leave them alone.
B'Elanna, I know this is a pretty bizarre situation, probably not what either of us had in mind, but it's too late to worry about that now.
She puts her hand over his mouth.
What?
Be quiet.
She leads him away. End of Act 4. Act 5. In the forest, Torres nuzzles Paris's hands and neck.
So this is the part where you throw heavy objects at me?
Maybe later.
I'm not sure exactly what I'm supposed to do.
Torres growls. Paris nuzzles her neck. She growls again, then throws him to the ground.
Well, what are you doing?
Enjoying myself?
Then show it.
They roll around, struggling almost playfully, until Vorik lifts Paris and throws him to the ground.
You are my mate, not his!
What are you doing here?
I've come to claim you, to fulfill our bond, and if necessary, to face my rival. Lieutenant TUVOK!
Ensign?
Sir, I declare Kunat Caliphate.
The ritual challenge. He intends to fight to win his mate.
You want to fight? You've got one.
Hold on, Tom. There's not going to be any challenge. Are you responsible for the ship being out of contact?
It was necessary to disable the communications, transporters, and shuttles. No one will keep me from my mate.
I am not your mate!
Oh, we will soon decide that.
If anyone is gonna smash your arrogant little face in, I will! I take your challenge myself!
She has the right to choose her own defender, even herself.
Just hold on. Neither of you are thinking straight right now.
They are following their instincts, and I suggest we allow them to do so.
You mean let them fight?
It is logical. Both must resolve their Pon farr before it kills them. We cannot wait to hear from Voyager.
They'll tear each other to pieces.
The risk of injury seems preferable to the certainty of dying from a chemical imbalance. Commander, I see no alternative but to follow Vulcan tradition.
All right.
Begin.
Torres and Vorik are evenly matched. Vorik attempts a neck pinch.
Vulcan neck pinch!
Which Torres avoids. Torres picks up a large branch, and they struggle over it.
Struggle.
They roll around on the ground, trading punches.
Pew pew! Punch!
Eventually, Vorik cannot get up, and Torres stumbles away, disoriented. She falls into Paris's arms.
It's over, isn't it?
The blood fever has been purged. They will both recover.
Later, in her quarters, Captain Janeway records her log.
Captain's log, stardate 50541.6. We're following through with CHAKOTAY's offer to help the Sakari improve their camouflage, and they've agreed to supply us with a generous quantity of galasite.
Paris calls a turbo lift. The doors open to reveal Torres.
Deck 2. So, looks like you're feeling better? You
Yes.
back on duty?
Yes, I'm fine. Thanks. The refit is going well. We should have new warp coils by the end of the week.
Oh, good. Glad to hear it. Computer, hold turbo lift. Look, this is ridiculous. We are going to be together on this ship for a long time.
You're right. We have to pretend that this whole mission didn't happen.
But something did happen, B'Elanna.
Look, Tom, I really appreciate what you did, what you were willing to do for me. But as far as I'm concerned, I was under the influence of some weird Vulcan chemical imbalance. And whatever I did, whatever I said, it wasn't me.
Yeah, I know. You're afraid that your big, scary Klingon side might have been showing. Well, I saw it up close, and it wasn't so terrible. In fact, I wouldn't mind seeing it again someday. Computer, resume.
Careful what you wish for, Lieutenant.
Meanwhile, Janeway has joined CHAKOTAY on the planet's surface.
Your call sounded urgent.
I think there's something you should see, Captain. We found this as we were clearing away the ruins. Undoubtedly one of the invaders that destroyed this colony.
Janeway peers through the undergrowth to see a skeleton with a cybernetic skull and body implants.
The Borg.
Yay. Yes, that is Blood Fever. We're going to roll credits, and then we'll be back for a little bitty talk back. One moment. And we're back. While the credits were rolling, we started to talk about that moment at the end where it's the Borg all of a sudden. Leah, do you want to continue your thought?
Yeah, every time, I've watched this episode a few times over the past week, and every time that's just so jarring. It's like there's all this stuff going on, and then at the very end, the last 10 seconds, you're like, oh, Borg. And I don't know, because it's been a long time since I watched the subsequent episode, if that's a relevant thing building up to the next episode, or if it's just kind of a one-off, there were Borg here, and now they're dead. Oh no. And then they move on.
In the episodes after this, CHAKOTAY gets stranded on a planet full of X-Borg.
Oh, that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
XBs. Need to use the correct term.
It truly feels like an edit, though, that they made at the very last minute.
Yeah. Like they wrote this episode, and then somebody was like, "Hey, what if the invaders are the Borg?" And they were like, "Yeah, that's great." And
they thought they were losing the audience or something. Like the episode wasn't interesting enough.
So don't forget, at the end of this season, we have Scorpion Part 1, where 7 of 9 is introduced.
Right.
So this is about halfway through the season when they're planning the next season. And Rick Berman's thinking, hey, we can get somebody in here in skin-tight lycra with big boobies.
And that's why Cass has literally one line in this episode.
Yeah.
They were like, let's get rid of her.
Oh.
So effectively what's happening here is we've got foreshadowing of we can tell it's foreshadowing. I didn't think much to the XB story in this one, but obviously it really gets played to the max when Seven turns up, and we see a seismic shift in season 4.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right. Well, we were also saying as the credits were rolling that this is our best episode yet, which I think is true.
Absolutely.
But I'd love to know from the cast, like, how did you prepare for all that EGOT acting?
Well, after 3 months in quarantine, I didn't have to reach too hard to find anger.
Oh my god. Well,
and I had a few of these right before, so that helped me.
Cheers,
free
Christy.
sponsorship.
Cheers.
At least I have the right to claim that my technique didn't actually happen.
What's that?
At least I had the grace last week to pretend that my technique wasn't actually happening whilst I was...
Well, it's amazing. I guess what's amazing to me is that, like, I mean, obviously, like, so much of the Trek fandom is so toxic and incel-y, and then you have episodes like this, and it's like, how could you watch this and not, like, I don't know how you can still be an incel after watching an episode like this and still think.
Well, I mean, Vorik's a great role model, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. One of the things I sort of struggle with a little bit with this is that, you know, there's a sexual assault happens within like the first 3 minutes of this episode. And okay, B'Elanna puts him square on his ass, which is great. It's still a really uncomfortable moment for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, when the whole idea of Pomfar was introduced in the 60s, it was clearly just like, hey, weird aliens with weird alien sex, ha ha ha. And then we never heard about it again. But in the 90s and into the 21st century, suddenly this like angry, violent need for sex plays really differently. And certainly at this point, they had not figured out how to approach that more sensitively. Like, does he get a free pass because it's biology? And does that then give all the incels out there like fuel for their argument? Like, I hate to think about it.
Right.
I recently joined a Facebook group called Computer, Delete the Incel.
I'm in that group.
Yeah, okay.
I'm joining it now.
It's great.
Nice. But it's an insight into the Star Trek fandom that I didn't know much about, like the toxic part of it, because all the Star Trek people I hang out with are you guys and you're cool. So I didn't realize there was this flip side, this like darker side to it.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about this every so often because, you know, specifically because this group is so in opposition to a lot of the like really toxic Trek fandom. It's really like the mental gymnastics you have to go through to sort of say that Star Trek is, you know, not leftist, that it's that it's an apology for like Ayn Rand, and that it's an apology for incels. It's bizarre to me. I've never understood that. I'm pretty sure that Star Trek made me a fucking space communist, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just before we did this episode, I had read an article about an MIT librarian who's like, don't put up nerdy pictures at work or Star Trek stuff because that makes the women uncomfortable. I'm like, it's not the Star Trek stuff that makes women feel uncomfortable. It's when you do the sexual objectification of the actors and actresses on the show that will make people uncomfortable. There's a big difference. Like, I'm happy to see somebody put a picture of Janeway up. I mean, that's cool, you know, or Picard or some other character they really like. But it's just that objectification that often happens in fandom that really starts to get uncomfortable.
It's the Orion slave girls.
Right.
That are inappropriate.
Yeah. Casey and Robbie, talk to me about your fight choreo.
I basically just said, hey, want to do something here? And I wanted to make it as corny as possible. That was my
I have
hope.
a broom. Use my broom.
I have a 2x4 that my air conditioner sits on when it gets put in.
And I used the cymbal stand as my rifle. My phase rifle.
Interesting fact, that is actually Robbie's wood.
Hey.
Yeah, I actually really like this episode because, I mean, it's uncomfortable to see a sexual assault, and it is uncomfortable to see, you know, somebody, you know, really going after this person who is not interested. But it's also somewhat satisfying to see the woman in the situation fighting back and kicking ass and standing up for herself. And it's like a lot of media that has that, you just see the female become the victim, but B'Elanna refuses to be the victim in this episode.
Yeah, and Vorik kind of comes across as like a whiny little bitch in all of this.
And I also really appreciate that this episode deals with some consent issues, because I really read this episode as like B'Elanna's kind of like the trashed drunk girl at the party, hanging all over some guy. And a lot of dudes would take advantage of that and just go with it. And that's how a lot of date rapes happen. And Paris just doesn't. For a long time, he just is like, no, I'm your friend. I need you to be able to consent. I don't want to have sex with you if you don't consent to it.
Yeah, it's a good role model. That little monologue he has about it is a great, you know, depiction of kind of how guys should behave in those situations, which I appreciate.
Especially compared to like early Paris in the first couple of seasons. I've been listening to the Delta Flyers podcast with Robert Duncan McNeil and Garrett Wang, who played Paris and Kim respectively. And Duncan McNeil keeps talking about how creepy he finds Paris in the first season.
Yeah.
And so this is a clear turn in that.
Well, and you have to remember that the first 3 seasons were during the writer's strike, I believe. You know, like that was when that was happening. So it wasn't until like 4th season, around the time that 7 was introduced, that the scripts actually got better as well. Because the strike had ended and we got new writers, or we got old writers who knew what they were doing, and so we stopped getting, you know, sort of these terrible like Alien of the Week kind of things.
Right.
Yeah.
Paul, I liked your line edit.
Yeah, we kind of discussed this a little bit before. It's like they kind of distract you a little bit with the language in this. Like they refer to it mating practices, whereas we would just say, you know, fucking, or So I said, like, if you replace the language in this sort of medical, weird, sort of detached language that they're using with normal plain speech, this episode is really fucked, you know. And the fact that TUVOK is basically telling his subordinate, Tom Paris, no, you have to fuck her. You know, that's what you have to do now. That's the only way you can help her. And it's,
and it's so awkward, especially because he's spent the entire episode trying not to, and now he's being told you must do it.
Yeah, it's the only way to help her. You gotta do it. It's just so weird. It is so, you know. So yeah, I wanted to sort of get that across, just how odd that was for me to say that, and just how weird it sort of sat with me. So
yeah, totally.
I feel like the whole thing is it's a way to make B'Elanna Torres' attraction to Tom Paris at all believable. Like, you know, how does that happen? Because that's not something. So she had to be like not in her right mind, and Tom had to be acting especially noble in order for that, you know, anything to blossom between them, because it would be unthinkable before this point.
Yeah,
absolutely. And when you look at the in the context of kind of the Paris that we've seen previously, where, as it's referenced in this episode, that he was kind of asking her out and hinting and trying to be around her, and there's kind of a trope in media and in the minds of a lot of people that, you know, if you keep pestering someone enough, they'll eventually give in. And if they'd had Torres and Paris get together on that basis, that he was just persistent enough, it would kind of reaffirm that. But actually, this episode gives him a chance to show that actually, he's actually a decent guy, and despite his very obvious feelings, he will put consent first.
Yeah, he's actually considering her in the situation. It's not just all about him and what he wants. He wants her to also be involved in the decision.
Yeah.
And at the end, they have that little conversation, and I mean, there's a little bit of a self-serving element for Tom because he wants to make sure she knows he's still interested. But also, he tells her he saw, her Klingon side and what didn't mind, and actually kind of liked it and wouldn't mind seeing it again. And I think that helped her a lot because she's so self-conscious about that. And I think a lot of women are told, don't be aggressive, don't be loud, don't be. And so for somebody like her to hear that, oh, I like that about you is nice.
Can I feel like I want to share this. To me, what I heard in that line was, yeah, I saw your dick. I saw your dick.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Yeah, headcanon now. Fantastic. No, sorry, I saw your two dicks.
Yeah, I saw your two penises. Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, Klingons apparently have two penises. And this is as a result of education time. I'm the biologist here, people. There's an episode of Star Trek Discovery where there's a Klingon having a whiz up a wall in an alley, and there are two streams.
So there's actually a little bit of a Next Generation callback in this because I think there's an episode where Worf is in sick bay and Beverly Crusher basically comments that Klingons have two of everything. There's lots of redundancy built into them. So makes sense.
I totally missed that. Yeah, you're right.
And a morbid fear of cargo barrels, I think, at that
point.
Oh,
yeah. Does anyone else have any reflections or thoughts?
Could I? So it was really fun to play the EMH in this episode because he actually plays a really straight character here, but still manages to get quite a few snarks in, which was nice. But I 20 years ago worked in a sexual health clinic, working with young queer people within that context, and the conversation that he has with Vorik and TUVOK are the same conversations that we are still having today around sex and sexuality, less so with straight kids in the UK. I think that situation is very different, certainly in parts of the States, but definitely with queer kids in both the UK and the States. And by the way, here by queer I'm meaning LGBTQA, insert your preferred letters here. So, when he says, oh, it's a very Victorian attitude, it is. If we don't talk about it, it doesn't go away. It's still there. It's still something we have to deal with. Only you're not as prepared when it comes to it. So when you're finally put in that position where you do get to see a Klingon's two dicks, you're really not sure what to do with it or how to do it safely. Not least because I imagine they're spined.
I know exactly what I would do with two Klingon dicks, but that's for another
I just want to back up what you're saying, David, because I had a college internship when I worked for an organization that did positive sex ed for teens, and it could frequently be very uncomfortable to have these conversations because it was clear that their families weren't. Right. And we weren't coming from it from a point of view that sex is bad. It was more of, we realize you're going to have sex at some point. Like, the odds are pretty high. So we want you to know what you're doing, and we want you to be safe and healthy.
And learn
that's
about consent.
Exactly. And yeah, it was always very interesting. There are, a lot of uncomfortable giggles sometimes, and sometimes we worked with young people who were living on the streets and turning tricks to get drugs, and they sometimes knew more than we thought they would. And then there are others who were just completely confused. And God, I mean, healthy discussion about sexuality is something that needs to be done.
Yeah.
I just want to add on to Casey's point, like both of you said, or all of you said that, there's a lot of cultures, even within different countries, that are very anti-sex and, puritanical, that kind of thing. And it's true, if you don't know anything about it, you don't even know what consent is. Like, you cannot know whether it's something that you want or don't want until after the fact, when you've suppressed it for a couple of years. Totally not talking about myself. That's not personal.
Definitely.
I have something.
But yeah,
to
just to support that. Go ahead, Becks.
Sorry.
Go for it.
It's like double Dutch. When I first watched this episode, I turned it off like 3 or 4 minutes in. Pretty much as soon as people started reacting to B'Elanna in that way, like, oh, she's got the Ponfar too, that's why she's acting like this, because I saw it as hypervigilance after trauma and hypersexuality and like all of these things that are part of the aftermath of something horrible that's happened, but we're like, oh, she's strong, she's punching people, like she's in charge, she just wants to get laid. Like, she's like working it out in her own way, but she's very much the victim in this episode, and it's almost like she tries to victimize Tom Paris as an extension of that. So it's really interesting how he
like
kind
a coping
stopped.
mechanism.
Right. Yeah, like she was trying to make sense of it and become a part of the cycle in a way.
No one ever mentions the possibility that she might be upset because she was assaulted by a subordinate. Like,
that's
true.
Like
no one ever is. Everyone's just like, "What's wrong? Why is she acting so crazy?"
She's obviously bothered by it because every time Vorik's name is mentioned after that, she gets real upset and just doesn't want to do anything with him.
There's no like disciplinary action against Vorik.
I kept waiting for TUVOK to be like, dude, we don't do that. Like, especially as logical and everything as they are, I just kept waiting for that. Even though I've seen it.
And unfortunately, this is so common. I've also done counseling with children and teens who are survivors of trauma and abuse.
Yeah.
And oh my God, the situations where it's like a family member was abusive, but that family member is still allowed to be around the person who they assaulted, and nobody's trying to protect them. It is so common because they come up with excuses. Oh, but this person is family. We can't not invite them to a family party. And it's like, no, you should not invite them to a family party if they show that they are going to harm another family member. And in a way, this is kind of the same thing. A crew member violated another crew member, and, that person should have been put in the brig. It's not good.
I mean, I think I completely agree with everything you've just said, and it's going to sound like I disagree with you, but I don't. I'm just going to say that I think under most, certainly the English-based laws that we're in, that would almost certainly count as not guilty by reason of insanity. They would almost certainly get away with it because it's almost certain that they are unable to control themselves. Now, the fact that none of that is discussed is part of the problem. But yeah, however, I think if it had gone down that street, it would have been a very different episode and probably would have led to the consent scenes that we saw as well. So I guess the writers had to make decisions, however competent writers they were, of course.
I think probably having that discussion would have cued the cast to have conversations about Rick Berman's questionable sexual politics.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the thing. there's a thing with episodes of Berman Trek where they have women that seem to lose control of their bodies, and there was a load of episodes of Cass doing this to Paul. This happened to Paul. It happened to Deanna Troi all the bloody time. It seems to be a theme with him. It just seems to be his. It's something I always find really gross about the Berman era of Trek, to be honest.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, there was a lot. He commented a lot on women's bodies, and was just a huge asshole. So I mean, I guess in that way, it's kind of no. I mean, maybe this writer wanted that conversation, and it was kiboshed. I wouldn't even be surprised.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, do we have any other closing thoughts before we talk about next week's episode?
I just want to say, I am biased because I was playing ISHAN, but I feel like the Sakari really got backgrounded a lot in this episode, and it bugs me.
Yeah, that's complete afterthought.
Because okay, I like Alien of the Week episodes. TOS and TNG do that a lot. But in those episodes, that's the A plot. The main thing is, who are these aliens? What's their culture? How do we interact with this? And then there's some B plot dealing with relationships on the ship or whatever. But in this one, it's the other way around. You've got this whole A plot with B'Elanna being horny, and then the Sakari are there in 2 scenes, and we don't know anything about them except that they got attacked by the Borg and live underground.
Yeah, and the conflict with them is almost negligible.
Yeah.
Once they just talk about it, they're like, okay.
Yeah.
So, the other thing I'd like to mention is who directed this episode. Does anybody know this off the top of their head?
Who is it?
Andrew Robinson, who is better known as a planes tailor on
As
Deep
who?
Space Nine.
As who?
Nice.
Garrett.
Andrew
Garrett. Aww.
Yeah.
Aww.
So
He's the
yeah,
best.
I think it was his second directorial outing, and he said that this episode taught him to trust his actors, because it was his actors who very much led the way these scenes happened, rather than him going, well, this is how I think sexy times would happen on planet. It was Tom and B'Elanna, or at least Roxanne Dawson and Robert Duncan, who said, actually, no, this is how we think we'd like it, because they understood their characters' dynamics.
Yeah.
And they also understood. So I also don't think that perhaps the day before that episode, it was not going to be Tom Paris that she was having a romp with. So again, that was a last-minute episode change that really changes the dynamics, because the production staff had decided they wanted Tom and B'Elanna to sort of turn into a relationship. So they made this the scene of that. So a couple of really interesting things happening in the background here, which probably shaped the way we see the episode.
Well, who did they originally want to put her with?
I'm glad you asked that. So I'm just going to check. Oh, she was going to be trapped in the caves with TUVOK.
Oh.
Yeah. Now, that's a bunch of relationship dynamics that would have needed work, huh? And I love the fact that Leah just stopped drinking then out of disgust.
Yeah. That would have been so bad.
Shock, but yeah. That's
good call.
Especially because TUVOK was so instrumental in dealing with Vorik and trying to manage that end of the situation, that if he was just stuck in the caves the whole episode, it would be so much worse.
I also think his resistance to her advances would have been a little actually less meaningful as coming from a Vulcan.
Yeah.
Compared to coming from a human who was actually already interested in her.
Right.
He would have just been like, "Listen, I'm only horny once every 7 years. Back off."
or what would have been even more fun is if Vorik and TUVOK both went into Pond Fire at the same time and then fucked each other. Just saying.
TUVOK's like,
I was afraid you were going to
you guys upon fire, you should have just called me,
How many penises do Vulcans have? Do we have that on canon?
I don't think there's any canon information on Vulcan penises. There is a lot of fan fiction information on Vulcan penises.
Yeah, I've pasted one of them into the planning group for your treat.
Vulcan genitalia fan lore.
And that's a great place to end an episode, Karl.
All
I
right.
have one question.
Yeah.
Did Roxanne Dawson direct last week's episode? When it came, the Enterprise episode?
She did, yeah.
I think
That's right.
so, yeah.
Which is interesting because, like, with the pawn, because last week dealt with the pawn part too.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
That was part 3 actually by the time.
Yes, and next week's episode, Who Is Without Sin, was directed by Renee Auberjonois, which I think is very fun.
Lots of actor-directed episodes here.
Yes, absolutely. So,
Great.
yeah, we're having, our third Horny Trek episode. Will be, excuse me.
Next week is a great episode with lots of sexual tension, but I'm really looking forward to the treason.
Right. Treason's the best. Oh, right. And Max just reminded me that it's Father's Day. Womp womp. So can't wait.
Father's Day.
Can't wait to disappoint all of our fathers by.
Well, you know how fathers become fathers.
There you go.
Trips to Risa.
It's relevant.
On par, right?
Right. So.
On par.
To Risa.
So what do we think? Are we all gonna wear Hawaiian shirts?
Yes. As a trans man, yes.
I think I have a way.
I don't own any. Maybe I'll have to order one. I'll
You
get
got a
like
week.
express shipping. Yeah. All right.
Christmas Hawaiian shirt, does that count?
Okay.
Sure.
Sorry, I didn't hear you. Anyway, we are so grateful that you joined us today for Dramatis Personae Blood Fever. This was episode 6. Next week, episode 7, Let He Who Is Without Sin from Deep Space Nine. Cannot wait to see you there. I will have this week's episode and last week's episode on YouTube presently. I'm going to set that as a deadline for myself by the end of the day. So look forward to seeing that on YouTube very shortly. And let's everyone just say goodbye. Thank you. We'll do credits one more time.
Bye.
All right, bye.